Welcome to Behind the Numbers, the podcast that keeps you updated with football within the hobby. Really excited for the show this week. Got our man Shani back on for our Super Bowl preview show. We're going to talk about Mosaic and Prizm pricing and for wax. It's gone up. It's very interesting numbers to check out. We're going to go over some singles out of Contenders and Mosaic as well. We'll give you our perspective, what's happening in the hobby, how we're approaching it, kind of our love-hate in terms of the hobby right now. We're going to go over some Super Bowl week preview, 5 takeaways in terms of big trades and movement around the league. And we're going to finish up with some Super Bowl prop bets. We'll see who can come out on top between me and Shani. Now, it's time for the show. Welcome to Behind the Numbers, Super Bowl week. Just getting ready for the Super Bowl and had to bring on my man Shani this week to get caught up on everything we've missed together. I know we probably don't want to talk too much Steelers. We won't do too much of that. But how you been, man? Great to see you.
Doing well, Tyson. Thanks for having me on again. Yeah, still licking my wounds this many weeks later. It's been hard to watch anything sports related since the Steelers debacle. Yeah,
man, that's kind of like one of those big, getting high, getting ready, and just that big letdown, we talk about undefeated season to the Browns. Dang it, the Browns. So, but what are your thoughts though? I mean, before we get into things here, hobby stuff, what's your kind of take on the Steelers? What's going to happen with Big Ben, you think? Or, Juju's a free agent, a couple interesting pieces to move in the Steeler land.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what I think is going to happen and what I think should happen. And I'll start with that. What I think should happen is get Ben to the old age home down to Florida, golfing, wherever he wants to go, and start the rebuilding phase as soon as possible. I think everybody saw the statue that he was behind the line, just waiting for somebody to take the ball from him. Look, and I'm not disrespecting Ben, even though it sounds like I am. I was a big fan all his career, and I'll be sad to see him go because he's obviously a franchise quarterback, and that's the toughest thing for any NFL team to find and build around. So but at the same time, I'd rather not have another season like we just did, despite how amazing the first 11 weeks were. I'd rather lose a few games amidst that and have a longer playoff stretch. But yeah, let's head into the rebuilding phase, start the process of finding a new franchise quarterback. I don't think it's Haskins. I doubt it's Rudolph. I doubt it's Dobbs. I think it's somebody yet to be named. I think it could be, let me put it this way, I think a stopgap kind of guy, like a Darnold or a Garoppolo, a number of guys have been thrown out there, would be okay. But I think ultimately the long term is a yet to be named guy, probably a guy who's in 9th grade right now.
And that's the hard thing about the league, right? It's getting that quarterback at the right time, the right situation, and all that stuff. And Pittsburgh, they've been a franchise able to do that. I mean, they've had very little over their tenure. They've had very little gaps of really bad quarterbacks. I think that the good thing this year is the draft's really deep in quarterbacks, so there might be one that's reachable if they can move up. There is about 5 or 6 guys we're going to talk about. And then, like you said, there is a lot of moving parts right now in the league. We've seen some big trades already, which we'll get to. There's a lot of moving parts to quarterbacks this year. So who knows? Could be a very interesting could be a surprise guy. We may not know.
I'll only add a couple of things. One is I think they need to clear house as far as coaching. Tomlin isn't a bad guy. I don't hate him, but there are guys around here that definitely do. I think we need just a clean slate, regardless of what you have to say about Tomlin. Wow, the other thing is the only name that's been thrown out there that I think would potentially give us a quick turnaround to a rebuilding phase is Watson. Yeah, I think the price might be really high.
Right.
I think it's worth paying the price potentially because I think Watson has that kind of talent. But otherwise, I think it's a longer-term rebuilding phase where we have to get to the point where we have a lower pick and we're picking earlier in the first round.
Right.
So, I mean, we picked Ben in the top 10, right? So
yeah, it was 9, I think. Yeah, I picked him at 9. That's like the last time you guys were up there. That's crazy. Perfect. Well, let's just move right into product update. We'll definitely get some more football talk as we get into the show. Lots to talk about as we get ready for the big game with Brady versus Mahomes. As we talked about last week, I really thought that Prizm was at like kind of a low point when it came to the product, especially with retail. It has come up quite a bit. So let's talk about the Mosaic Prizm retail and just kind of work our way down. So Mosaic cello packs 35 to 40, those are both up. 25 to 30. For Prizm now, so they've gone up about $5. They were 20, 25, another 25 to 30. Hanger box Mosaics are up as well, 50 to 55, up $15 for Prizm, 55 to 60. They were hitting 40. They're almost up to 60 now. Blaster boxes 75 to 80 for Mosaic, almost up to 80 for Prizm as well. Prizm was hitting as low as 60, so it's a pretty big gain there, about 33% jump on that. Retail 170 to 175 for mega boxes for Mosaic. And then 190 for Prizm's Mega Box. Prizm's Mega Box took off. At least the last few comps were around 190. They were 130, 140 the week before. So Prizm's definitely getting some run when it comes to retail right now. The hobby stuff's still a little bit distant in terms of Mosaic. Mosaic 700 to up 100 for the no huddle for Mosaic at 700, and then that's 850 for Prizm's no huddle. And the last two, hobby 825 for Mosaic, and then 1200, so up $200 on the Prizm hobby. So Prizm has made some pretty big gains in terms of the market for sealed wax. I think we kind of expected that to happen, to take over Mosaic eventually once the product was not as much supply, just kind of common sense, right? But what are your thoughts on those wax prices, Shani? And have you been, I know you haven't got much. I haven't got much either.
I got my hands on quite a bit of Mosaic, and I definitely got my hands on a bit of Prizm in the early run.
Oh, nice.
Speaking, but I stopped trying after a bit. Basically, after the Steelers lost, I stepped away. My overarching comment is a bit of surprise relative to the pricing between the two products. I really never expected Mosaic to even contend, and we're talking about it basically being a pretty close, even playing field in terms of pricing. And I'm shocked by it, and I would say I still don't expect that to be the case long term.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. Maybe that's my bias because I'm a bit of an old school guy, a recent old school guy, right? I'm not talking about I need old Topps cardboard from the 80s. But at the same time, as far as the shiny cards go, I still lean towards Prizm, and I think it has its staying power more baked into the hobby. And Mosaic, it's just a new kid on the block to me still.
Yeah, it definitely is a new kid on the block. I think it's a matter of how long it stays on the block. And I think that's going to be really interesting to pay attention to. I think it's a great product in terms of the color. I think a lot of people, I do like a look of a lot of the cards. So in general, the staying power is strong in terms of just the look for me. And as we can see, the sealed wax is still holding. Obviously, it's harder to find, especially the retail. That's going to keep going up because it's just getting depleted. But in terms of even singles, they're still holding good value. A lot of the PSA 10 Herberts and all those things are coming out, and they're commanding really good value. So it is really comparable to, I really want to know, what do you think? Is it going to be close to Optic? There's a tie and I talked about 2 weeks ago. Mosaic's kind of, where's it going to be compared to Optic? What do you think?
I think there are a lot of questions that come with Optic coming so late in the year. I think this is a really unique, it's a weird thing. Optic is typically early in the year. Optic would have typically been coming out when Mosaic did. Being that we're so late in the year, a lot of folks are 1 foot, if not completely out the door, and thinking more about basketball than football. That this is, for most, the time when we would be really only having conversation about high-end nosebleed kind of products, not one of these lower-end retail kind of products. I really question whether or not Panini might have hurt itself by holding on to Optic and releasing it so late in the year.
Right.
Or maybe not hurt itself because it's all going to sell out, but hurt Optic's potential value. We'll see. Personally, of the three, I have, ever since Optic came out back in 16, 17, I've liked it more than all of any of the products. And we'll see, both in terms of whether I can get my hands on any and whether I care to, but more importantly, when I do see it and really, to what extent it's that feeling of mine will change about Optic. And that's a very personal thing. And it, to be honest with you, it brings me back to just this Prizm versus Mosaic question. And is it a great ability thing? Is it? You mentioned it. Is it a look thing? Do people like more of the full bleed look versus a border?
Right.
That if Mosaic's foothold that seems strong is because of a look, and that full bleed look is something that a lot of people seem to like, well, that kind of answers your question in large part, because we know Optic is going to be like Prizm in that it has a border.
Yeah.
And you know, that in and of itself could be a big factor. But I think, to me, the biggest factor is the fact that it's coming so late in the year.
Yeah.
I think it has the potential to really hurt its value. Who knows? I could also be very wrong and bad at this kind of prediction thing, because I didn't think that Mosaic would have the kind of power it does in the hobby.
I just think it hit at a perfect time. I think you had Donners come out, and it's the paper, and everybody knows not too much. And then we go look now, and Donners has, you know, Herbert PSA 10s are hitting $250, like $200, like people, that's commanding value. And Mosaic just hit at such a perfect time of that little. It ended that wait for Prizm that people just ate it up. And like you said, the retail was strong. And so there's a lot of affordable breaks and, you know, retail breaks and a lot of things people get their hands on. So a lot of people just, you know, I've seen so many people building sets out of it. Like people just kind of went all in for it, waiting for Prizm. I think a lot of people also went on for it because they felt that Prizm was going to be unaffordable. So it really kind of scrunched people down to being like, I'm going Mosaic. I think Mosaic's going to be great value, and I might not be able to afford Prizm, and we'll see what happens with Optic. And so now these people have these, you know, Mosaic cards, and they're just being bought and sold like crazy. And we'll see where Optic falls. We already saw some filter out today. A couple little breaks of it, seeing it. It looks good. You know, it's the Donruss with the, you know, Optic look in terms of the chrome finish. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how these Optic singles go, and then start comparing, you know, the raw Mosaic versus raw Prizm, Herbert versus raw Optic, and just kind of start seeing that go up until we see them all graded. But it's going to be a really interesting conversation for sure.
It's probably not that important to say. At the same time, I feel compelled to, and that is, it's very hard to answer the kind of questions we're asking ourselves in this market. There's such hype around it. We know it. I don't need to go into that. It's been beat like a dead horse, as the cliche goes. But the point I'm trying to make is the real answer to these particular questions, I think, comes in 2 to 4, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
The
we won't know soon.
Yeah, the immediate. It's fun to talk about, and I think it's still, and even potentially has some importance to banter about this, but it's hard to really answer these questions.
Just as soon as we see the gems come, I think that's a good starting point. But you're right, long term. That's what's really going to kind of make the decision. But I do think that with the hobby growing, I think there was room for another major rookie card, and I think we do have one. I think that's kind of the conclusion. So just go through some singles with you, just to catch you up, just giving you some idea what's going on in terms of other singles. We got Herbert Silver Mosaic PSA 9, so not even a gem, 200. Burrow Genesis Raw 1500. So a raw Burrow Genesis, that's the short print you got at retail. Those are really cool looking cards. 1500, I thought was a pretty high number. Again, for him being injured, his cards are still getting value. Chase Young, I keep giving him up because I just think it's really interesting to see how well he's doing for a defensive player. But a blue Mosaic 90 out of 99 PSA 9 for 165. So still 165 for a PSA 9 of a defensive player. I just think that, I mean, it's a low numbered card, but that's pretty impressive. Jordan Love, pink camo, PSA 10 out of 160. Anything about those singles out of Mosaic before I switch to contenders on you?
No, I took a look at and just tried to compare over the course of just a few weeks. And there's a jump in the last 2 to 4 weeks with all these guys, and that surprised me a bit. I thought with the holidays, with people starting to move into basketball, with teams dropping out of the playoffs or not even making the playoffs, that this is the time of year that certain guys really start to hit the trends, and other guys just basically kind of get sealed in wax, so to speak. But that's not the case. I mean, the pricing is really maintaining itself, if not even growing, and that's pretty surprising, quite.
I just think there's just so many variations and so many different types, and they're all holding value. It's just crazy to me. Even the base is still doing well, so it's like they're all still relatively having good value. I just, to me, that's just crazy. I read off a couple of shows ago how many variations there are, and it's insane.
Yeah. But, and this hype around hobby just has not died. It doesn't.
No,
it hasn't gone anywhere.
That's right. So contenders, we know, is all about the auto. So I just grabbed a couple of contender autos. As you know, the bases, I'd say mostly worthless. But in terms of the autos, Antonio Gibson, base auto 53. Joe Burrow, rookie ticket swatch RPA 800. I put this on here. That was quite interesting. Rodrigo Blankenship, rookie auto, $41. You know the hobby's strong when kicker autos are going for over $40.
I was wondering why you put that on the list, and you answered my question, obviously. Look,
yeah.
I think there are a couple of things to that. Even in years past, you would see certain guys that you couldn't understand why would go for a lot. And that's because there's always, for the guys who have some history with Contenders, they know Panini doesn't print that SP, SSP, and SSSP list for several weeks, even months after the product that Contenders is released. So, yeah, there are a lot of guys who we don't know who there will be, and they're not necessarily the stars of the rookie class that will end up being very short printed. And you grab up a couple here and there of guys that you think could possibly be that, whether it's because you're looking at the trends on eBay and you're just not seeing a lot of listings for certain guys.
Right.
That, and then the old thing that we've been hearing so much because of the hype, high tides raise all ships. Matt Filer, Steelers rookie O lineman. You usually would be able to pick up an O lineman autograph for $5, maybe, if not 20. I mean, it's starting to come down. That was in the very first couple of days.
Right.
It's come down, but it's still well above $5.
Yeah.
It's an O lineman. I mean,
The Bills rookie kicker had one for 37, I think. Same, like, you know, these kickers. To me, I just like, if you're wondering if the hobby's doing well, go look up kicker autos. You know,
right?
Yeah.
But if it's an SSSP,
right.
Good reason why.
People like, I mean, I love SPs. That's just a fun thing to chase. Like they're cool and neat.
When you don't know, and it's a secret until, you know, a few months later. It's like, oh, look what I had in my back this whole time.
And the last one I had on here is just a rookie green out of 10, 615. So, you know, the Contenders autos commanding a lot of value, especially the quarterbacks. Even the Justin Jeffersons and those guys are having some really good values as well. They're really clean on card autos, as we know. Really tough break, really tough product to buy and try to hit because there is a lot of misses. I mean, every product there is, but just seems like in that product, especially, you're leaning on the autos. So what are your thoughts on Contenders? Pretty much covered it. Is that good?
I will say one more thing, and that is the biggest question I've had for so many years with Contenders, and as much as I really do love the product, is without fail, every year, Panini, in this year with it coming out relatively later than it has in years past. It's not an early season product, but it just comes out before the playoffs. What I'm trying to say is this, though. They've had enough time to recognize who didn't make a team.
Right.
And still yet every year they're a good handful, not a small handful of guys, guys that aren't even on a squad that's up with, and it seems like you'll always get one or two of those guys where you'll get 4 or 5 of their autographs in a given case.
Yes, I know. It's not. I've seen a lot of breaks of it, and very rarely is there a hit in the break that makes you feel good about the break. I mean, I've seen Jordan Love and a Hurts here and there, but man, it's tough. It's a tough product for sure. Yeah. So the last thing in closing product is, remember, Optic comes out officially on the 10th. As I said, some of the retail has kind of hit, and I've seen some cards open and just seen people get a feel for it. But yeah, just keep your eyes out for Optic breaks or any Optic products within your area. Definitely a retail you want to grab if you can find it. And with that, just kind of transition to hobby direction. So one of the big things I've seen all over, you know, different groups and Twitter is you got Gary V saying, hey, hobby's just getting started. This is just the beginning. We're on a very, very long uphill climb, basically, just saying the hobby's just getting going. And then you have Vegas Mike, you know, famous for selling the Trout Superfractor, saying, hey, mark my words, 18 months, this market's going to crash. Very interesting with two polarizing guys in the hobby, just in terms of their status, in terms of people put a lot of money into what they say. Like, what are your thoughts on those two very opposite directions from very, I don't want to say powerful, but they are pretty dang powerful when it comes to the hobby.
They have voices. Let's put it that way. And
they're voices
and names, and they've got a following.
Yep.
I don't know. I really just don't know. I thought that by now this hype train would have, if not died out, at least slowed down. And I think we've seen putters, but it's then picked up. And I'll be the first to say I'm a bit surprised. I remember when I talked to Ty in the very beginning of the COVID that kind of aligned with the timing of this hobby hype. We kind of thought, we've got the summer to cash in on this.
Right.
The summer turned into fall, and the fall has turned into winter, and we're now in a new year. And we've hit putters. Like I said, we've died down a little bit here and there. We've gone through the ebbs and flows, which is typical of any hobby, but we still have it going. The question I think that's more important to ask is not whether Gary Vee or Vegas Mike are right.
Yeah.
It's who will this hobby be for moving forward?
Yeah.
And whether or not the average Joe guy who wants to be in the hobby, and that's honestly whether it's to collect, which is more important to me because I'm historically a collector.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't sell and don't make a profit on things to keep my collection going. I do, but it's whether we're talking about the collector and or the flipper, who's this hobby for? And the pricing is such that unless you have a really good bot,
yeah,
and or very deep pockets, I just don't know that many people will be able to sustain their activity within it. I'm a perfect example of that, and I've taken a long break, and it's helped me adjust my attitude and my expectations. It's also really helped me adjust certain things that I was engaging in the hobby with in a potentially, I don't want to say negative or addictive or, but in a way that I needed to adjust and really course correct for myself.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the end result means I'm doing so much less. And so there are going to be people that because of that will leave. And the people who can figure out how to stay because they really love it despite not having deep pockets are the true, believers, so to speak, but the true hobbyists. But I think the question that I'm not going to be able to answer here, and nobody really will, but the question that really has to be talked about is who's the hobby for? And I just hope Panini and Topps and the folks that are making bigger decisions within this hobby are thinking about that question as well.
Right. And I think that, I think it's easy to, I know I obviously those are two extreme ends of the spectrum. I think I don't think it's going to crash. I think that there's definitely going to be some leveling out. That's just naturally going to happen. But I thought it was just very interesting to see those two different topics, and then everybody wanted to post a thread and give their take. And you got there's so many different angles with it. You can argue both directions. I think in terms of like being a collector, then that doesn't really affect us as much because we are just trying to be steady in what we're doing. I think it could affect, like, you may lose some huge wax pricing that's just going crazy, or you may if you're holding on to 2018 Prizm that's being $1,000, but 300 for a blaster box, it's probably going to maybe go down to 200 or something. Those type of things are probably going to happen, just because that demand will be a little bit less at some point. But overall, I think that it's going to grow. The one thing I will say, I thought that we would be more of a decline now because I thought basketball would be disappointing because of the rookie class. And that's the thing that's shocking me the most, is that the value of a lot of things around it is still doing relatively well. So now baseball is starting to pick up. So a lot of the baseball rookies are gaining steam. You got a lot of love for Vlad right now. A lot of different guys are getting steam, which is really interesting me to see that basketball being a little bit low level it's not slowing things down, which I thought it would a little bit. So, but anyway.
But part of that, Tyson, though, that you have to factor in to some degree is that the rookie class isn't as bad.
Right. It's been better.
Had thought. I don't think it's going to match up to the last several years of rookie classes. It's still relatively average. I should say below average for a rookie class, but you've got a couple of guys that are standouts. And then the other thing is a lot of second, third year guys. And there's actually more recently, it seems to me at least, and this is kind of just going off the cuff, that there's a bit of a shift from the rookies to some vets within basketball. But I know This is a football podcast and show, but I have to say, kind of like Optic coming out way late in the year, I really question what's going on with Panini in terms of taking so long to release an NBA product this year.
Yeah.
Came out with Prizm Draft, and we still haven't seen hoops, and I really don't understand that.
Right.
Typically, it comes out before, if not during, the first couple of weeks of the regular season.
And that might be COVID related, where
I'm sure, but it's a long time coming, and it's
for sure. I
think it's going to make hoops pretty expensive when it's
people are demanding it. So just to transition into that, but the LoveHate we thought we'd do a little love hate hobby takes, just kind of 3 apiece. I'll just run through my 3 love to start, and then you do your 3, and then we'll do both our hates. Okay, try to start positive and see if we can end it.
It messed up a little when I read your agenda. I was more going along with your love.
Oh, sure, that works. That works.
Open comment on yours.
Let's do that. So one of my first love was the friendships and chatter connections I've made. Like, I think just being in a lot of different Facebook groups and a lot of different, obviously chatting with you, meeting Ty, just kind of spreading the brand in terms of bench clear, just all this little fun, because it's just for fun, and just having all these connections with people that I never would have if it wasn't for cards. Having people message me for advice on a buy or a sell, and just trying to it was like a huge fantasy football group is the best way I can describe it. And fantasy football is kind of my life growing up, and talking to people about trades and rookie drafts and constantly. And it's extended into cards. And I think that's just been really fun for me. So that's kind of my number 1 love. You want to comment on that? Go back and forth.
Go ahead through your loves. Go ahead.
All right.
I'll jump in at the end of that.
Sounds good. The connection to sports, like having a tangible value. So obviously the fantasy football is always make-believe. You're getting players that everybody has that player in one league. And I think actually having a card or having something that is yours has definitely been a thing that I've kind of gravitated towards, compared to just being like a fantasy football player or just a different piece of it. So that just kind of connection to the players, and, get my Kobe Bryant cards, because I was a huge fan of his when I was growing up. And just finding a lot of these in old binders. My friend went through one of my old binders last week, and a couple more Kobe rookies came out. Just so pumped to see those, even though they're not in great condition, but I didn't care. But anyways, just, having tangible things to kind of collect is pretty awesome. And the last thing is just like, you love and you hate it, but like the edge of opening packs, the excitement of it. I remember like first day back collecting, kind of getting right back into it. I went down to the card shop the first time. I'd say this is probably 2.5 years ago. Once I kind of started like, I'm gonna get back into cards a bit. My friend kind of talked me into it. I got 3 packs of Panini Contenders, the ones that have an auto per pack. Opened 2 there. Got like the Boston College tight end. Nobody that good. And then I opened one in the car. Seems like the car where my hits are. But I opened one in the car, and it was Josh Jacobs cracked ice out of 5 auto, and I was just hooked. Just hooked. So I was just like, that is the kind of memories and opening packs that you just you'll never forget. So
knowing your tendency, you probably still have that Jacobs out of 5.
I don't. I actually did sell that one.
Good for you, man.
So what do you think about those love points there?
I'll jump in here, and I'll make a comment about your loves, and I think it'll transition well into hates, because I think really my comment pertains to your last bullet point there in terms of that itch.
Yeah.
That I call that itch gambling.
Yep.
And
100%.
To me, being a guy who's really enjoyed gambling at a certain degree, I mean, I've had to temper it at times. To me, that's the love and the hate of the hobby.
It is.
And it's number 1 on both sides. I love the gamble. I love that feeling of opening a pack and saying to myself, this could have a year's worth of tuition for my kid inside.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that's why I keep going back and spending more than I should, and spending more time on the road driving from Target to Target. Not anymore, but that's that love hate, and I think it's something that probably a lot of people have to contend with in the same exact vein, loving that feeling, loving that gamble, and at the same time hating it because it could hurt. And it has. We've all felt that pain. Yeah. That's really, in a nutshell, my comment about the love hate thing. We can get into people around the hobby and my love hate relationship with people, and that's its own show.
Yeah, I know. Just into the hate stuff, or the things that I find a tough part of it. I mean, yes, I did sell that Josh Jacobs. That was one of my first or second sales on eBay. At that time, I think I had a Josh Jacobs, and I had another. I had one of the running back that somebody wanted, but anyway, selling, I think just selling is a really hard thing for me to do. Just like getting raked on fees, or people always lowballing you, and just, the back and forth. And I know that's part of selling. I think that's part of just transactions in general. But I think there's obviously all the negativity around eBay and returns and people canceling and all that stuff that you constantly hear. And I just don't want to deal with that. I'd rather just keep the card a lot of times. And so I think that's hard, because then you're like, right, I am gambling or the itch to get stuff, and I'm not funding myself appropriately with what I have. But yeah, and even in Facebook groups and all that stuff, it can just be difficult. It's more work than it looks like. And so I commend a lot of those guys that have a really good cycle of selling and doing consignments and all those type of things, because those are beneficial. And so with grading now today, it's just one more step in the stone. So, but yeah, I think selling is definitely really hard. Second thing, the negativity in some of the hobby groups, I think that kind of goes anywhere in life. You're going to have negativity, whether it's in Twitter or Facebook or all those things, but definitely in the hobby, there's the know-it-alls, the guys that think they can tell everybody what to do or their car's not worth anything. I think just that negative commodity, I don't like that. Those people, I wish they would just kind of be gone, because there are some really good people in Facebook groups that I'm in. And as I mentioned, that is one of my big positives. It's just, there's always that person you just wish they could hit the door. And the last thing, people that have zero clue about the sports or the cards themselves and are asking for advice of how to flip. Like, I can't stand the, hey, I found all of these, how much are they worth and where should I sell them? It's just like, man, get out of here. So like, I just get so sick of people that have no idea what they're doing and they're just trying to rake. So that's kind of my three things that stand out in terms of the hate of the hobby right now.
It's funny, that last one is perfect. And the only thing I would add to that is, it's so funny how before the hobby really swelled, it was always that old buddy or an aunt that said, I found all these cards from the late 80s. They're so old. They're worth so much. Do you want to take them and sell them and just maybe give me half? And I was like, well, here, just take a quarter. And that's all they're worth.
Yeah.
Don't waste my time.
Right. I remember you and Ty talking about those stories of everybody saying, hey, come look at me.
That was and I'm sure it still happens to a lot of people. But the way I'm trying to say this is that was the more common approach that people seem to have until recently. And now it's, like you said, the flipper who's, I have access to this or that. Should I buy this or that? How much can I flip it for? Oh, only 10% profit. It's not worth my time. This is 50% profit or 100 or 200% profit. That's worth my time. There's either that shift or that addition to the conversation about people who just want to get advice from you. That, it's an entirely different conversation when someone's trying to get advice about who to focus on or what sport or the tension behind the conversation.
That's fun.
Coaching. That's a great conversation.
Yeah,
that's when somebody's really into the hobby in a way that they're like-minded. And it's not, look, there's no problem with making profit. There's no problem with that being one of your primary goals. Yeah. But when you just don't care at all about sports or at all about this hobby, and you're just trying to get in, make a profit, get out, and potentially walk away entirely to the next hype train item that's coming out next week that has nothing to do with sports or cards.
Go yard sale flip or something, man. Go flip something else. So, yeah.
They are really only engaged in that process, and whatever the product is today, and it won't.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, I'm still in it. I still enjoy it. Like I said, I do want to temper different areas, like kind of you. I think I envy like kind of what you've done in terms of be able to take a break. I think that is important to reset. It's a fast moving, man. Like the other thing I'd say, maybe I wouldn't say it's in the hate, but I think just a difficult thing is that there's just constantly stuff going around. Like you got breaks, you got people messaging you, got sales, you're just constant. You can really get engulfed to it. So I think definitely for me, just recognizing that and being able to step away and remember, I have a family, I have things that are really important in life. Like cards are great. I kind of know what I'm doing. But I got things I got to put on my priority list.
So let me address that quickly, because I think, I kind of want to get it off my chest, but I think it's important for some people to hear potentially. And that is, look, I'll be very honest. My stepping away I don't know, it's only been a month. It started with the Steelers downslide, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the Browns game. It was before that. And I could see what was happening. I didn't know they were going to lose to the Browns in the first round of the playoffs. If I had done that, I probably would have stopped months ago. months ago. But between the pricing, the lack of the accessibility problem, and the way this football season seemed to start going, after week 11 or week 12. But the point is, that's when the kind of factors converged. And, and look, I'll also be honest, I wanted to step away from being out there as much as I was, even if it was just to go to Targets and Walmarts and hobby shops. I didn't even want to do that as much anymore, because I really needed to take my father's health seriously and mine too. So all those factors played in, and it wasn't intentional. It wasn't I'm making a decision to stop. It was more like,
it's the best thing to do at this time. Yeah.
It was a slow progression, and it was like, oh, one day I didn't go out this week. It's been 2 weeks. Oh, it's been a few weeks, and I haven't spent any money on cards, even an eBay transaction, other than selling, in weeks. And I'm looking at my bank account, but more importantly, I'm starting to think about what are the things about this hobby that really excite me, that really keep me going. And I've been wanting to, for not a few months, but a couple years now, step back and say, I know which products I should really cut out, not approach anymore, that I can't because I have that itch. I gamble, and I can't prevent myself from even just a pack, just a blaster. And I sat down and really made myself think about it and put pen to paper and say, moving forward, you're not allowed to spend on these products. You're not allowed to spend more than this dollar amount because you've looked at your budget. You're not allowed to step out of certain boundaries that you're setting for yourself. And you see now that you could do it. It's clearly not that hard, even though it was never a question I really asked myself before. It was just reckless abandon. And that I recognize because of that, I need to set those boundaries. And lack thereof, that's what I got. I got myself into that kind of space. So, there's a silver lining to everything, but it's a personal thing, right? That's how it affected me. That's how I ended up making decisions. That might not work for everybody, but I'm thankful for having gone through that process.
And I do think that, and we'll close it with this. We're not trying to do a life seminar here, but I think that this is a really big, dark black hole. Like, you can go super far in, you can get super engulfed, and you can spend a lot of money, and you can get in, you just all chips on the table. And you have to come out of that hole every once in a while and just make look around you, making sure that you're settled, make sure that you have things in order. Because I know there's a lot of people that aren't able to handle it, just like any type of gambling or any type of situation like this stuff. So take care of yourself, make sure you have your things in order. Kind of leave it at that. Let's move on. 5 takeaways of Super Bowl week, man.
Yeah.
There's some pretty big takeaways. We got to start with the big blockbuster trade. Rams and Lions blockbuster trade. Goff 2 firsts sent to the Lions for Stafford. Are you surprised?
I'm still scratching my head about this one. I don't really get it. I'm still on either side. I know that a lot of the articles I've read are both sides made out and got what they wanted. Okay, so I get it. The Rams wanted a vet. The Lions wanted a younger guy, but the pick issue. Look, I'm still scratching my head. They both.
I just can't believe Stafford was that valuable.
Really what they wanted or needed? I don't get it.
I just can't believe that Stafford's that valuable. I mean, he's older. I mean, we're talking about Matt Ryan, very similar age. They're kind of coming to being replaceable. That's a home run for the Lions in terms of rebuild. They're not going to go with their Stafford now. My biggest question is how much better, and I know that Goff's not good. I understand that we can agree to that as football people watch football, but how much better is Stafford right now than Goff? That's the question. Is it Super Bowl worthy? Because to me, the Rams have basically put themselves in a position. If they do not win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years, it's going to be a dark few years after that when all their contracts are up and it's a big risk. And putting it into Stafford's hand, who made the playoffs once and lost on a bad call to Dallas. It's a very big risk. So I think if I'm being honest, I think the Lions made out like bandits. I think it's a great rebuild for them and give some picks and add some youth and build that franchise. And I think they can start Goff for a little bit and just kind of, dump them when they need to.
That's really the best point you made. The Lions made out like bandits because it doesn't matter how Goff plays.
Right.
I don't get it. I don't think Stafford's that valuable.
Right.
He's shown flashes of brilliance in the past. He's shown he has some.
He's got the arm,
ability at times. If he comes to LA and does his thing like that, good for the Rams.
Yeah, but still, he's had injury issues though. Stafford hasn't been completely healthy. He's not, there's a lot of issues. And don't rule out the Lions still looking at quarterback. I think they could still look quarterback in the draft this year still, just because if they're up that high now, they can see the guy they like, they have to take it. But next point, Jags go with Urban Meyer to take the young Jags team over. Good, bad. How do you feel about that? And then we'll tailor the second question: is the Lawrence to the Jag, is that bad for the hobby in general? So why don't you tackle the Urban Meyer, and then we'll talk about Lawrence and the hobby.
I liked this question as a whole and both parts of it. My answer about Urban Meyer is 2 things. I think it's a good choice for a young team, especially a young quarterback. He clearly knows how to deal with the student athlete, and Lawrence being not a year removed from that space, and the team generally being young, and he's obviously a good coach.
Right.
That said, will his health keep up? That's been a big question mark about Urban Meyer in years past. He's only a few years older since the last time he had to take a hiatus due to his health.
Yeah.
So did he get himself on some beta blockers or calcium channel blockers such that his heart is okay? I wish him no ill. I hope he stays healthy, and I think he's good for the NFL. But that's the commentary right there. That's my
Okay. And what do you think about Lawrence, the Jags for the hobby?
Look, we know this. It's a truism about all sports. The worst teams are the ones picking the highest.
Yep.
We don't necessarily every year throw out the question mark. Is this bad for the hobby that this great player is going to this horrible team? It happens every year. That said, I would actually argue that the Jags are a better franchise for him to go to than some of the other teams that could have potentially had the number one.
100%. 100%.
And I'm excited to see him go to the Jags for a number of reasons. I think, it's a better franchise, better ownership. And they have some pieces in place.
A lot of young pieces. They're in a very good window. Like, that's what I've been saying about Lawrence Land, the Jags. There's a lot of people say, oh, it's just terrible. The Jets would have been so much better. No, the Jets probably wouldn't, because the Jets don't have the pieces the Jags do. Right now, we feel pretty good about the Jags' direction in terms of coaching and their ownership. And like, I was kind of thinking about this in the sense that Herbert went to the Chargers, and the Chargers aren't some big market. Look at his cards. They're through the roof. Zion and Ja aren't in huge markets. They're in Memphis and the Pelicans. Like, it doesn't really matter. I just want to throw that out there because I've heard a lot of people say, well, man, if he went to the Jets, I think it would have been worse if he went to the Jets, because he has chances to be successful, which what really matters to the quarterback position is in Jacksonville. And I think that also if Watson gets traded, like, that division's wide open. Like, division's wide open. And so he could win really early.
Even if Watson doesn't get traded, by the way.
Yeah, like, exactly. I mean, even if he doesn't, but if Watson gets traded, he's the best quarterback in the division right out the gate. And so I think it's just, to me, it doesn't matter. But that was an interesting point I've kind of seen made across different groups.
And the last thing I'll say about this is we've learned anything in the past 9 to 12 months, it's some hype train just can't be stopped.
Yeah.
If Trevor Lawrence isn't a hype train that can't be stopped, I don't know what is. And look, if he ends up not performing, ultimately every hype train will come to a screeching halt due to lack of performance, but he'll have a lot of hobby love, and deservedly so. And it doesn't matter what team he goes to.
Yeah, I agree. He's just going to be a polarizing player that people are going to follow no matter what. Yeah. Good. All right. We'll be short on this one. Texans hire Coley, the Ravens assistant. Watson officially wants out. Will it happen? And does the Stafford deal increase Watson's price? So with seeing what the Rams paid for Stafford, that might make things difficult to move Watson, was my thought. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very good point. I don't think that there's a team out there that needs a quarterback that will be willing to pay much more. I could be wrong about that. We had an internal conversation within my group of guys about whether or not the Steelers should pay the price for Watson. And granted, this conversation happened before that price was set by the Lions-Rams. But I thought we should go for it. And for that matter, then, if I'm saying the Steelers should, I think there are quite a few teams that need a quarterback that shouldn't have a problem pulling the trigger, even if the price is high. Because the bottom line is this: if you're trying to build through the draft, we know how many times you have to shoot and miss to get to the point where you get a guy that even might have the talent of a Watson. Not that Watson's proven himself to a degree that you would say, okay, he's clearly this level of franchise quarterback, but he's done a lot.
Yep.
And I believe in him. And I'm clearly, not an NFL coach or an NFL scout, but there are clearly quite a few of those guys that believe that as well.
He's a franchise player that he's the face of your franchise. You're good to go. You're ready to build around. Yeah, he's that type of player for sure.
Health's a question, but who is the health not a question for?
Right. Well, like I said, we'll see what happens. He's going to be a very interesting storyline for the whole offseason until something falls right around draft time. Speaking of, it's kind of not really been mentioned as much, but as a Dallas fan, is this Dak deal going to get done? Just because it just seems like they keep kicking their feet with it. I think they want to do it. I think they know it's the right thing to do it. I think Dak is the guy. As a Cowboys fan, I want to just keep rolling with him. I think he's a franchise quarterback. But what are your thoughts? Do you think Dallas is going to
It makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest with you.
Yeah, do something tricky.
I think Jerry is the kind of guy that's got that devil and that angel on either shoulder. And it didn't. The irony wasn't lost on me that the previous question was about Deshaun Watson, and he happened to be in the same state.
Yeah,
that a guy like Jones is sitting there thinking it would look really bad in the public eye, but what if I just let Dak go test the market and I got Watson to stay in this state and just come? It scares me. It makes me ill because Dak does not deserve to be played like that.
Yeah, I just want to see him get played. I think he's a franchise quarterback. We can win with him. I know we can. So I say we as a Cowboys fan. I don't know. I'm not on the team.
I get it. And I hope he gets everything he wants. And he wants out of Dallas, and if that's the case, hope he gets what he wants.
I'd support that. I'd support the player on that for sure. Yeah. Some notable free agents just before we get into some. We'll make the playoff bump thing a little bit quicker because I've already kind of gone over that, but I want to get your take. But the notable free agents, just people to keep in mind. One thing that's going to be really interesting in the offseason in terms of the hobby and just in football in general is huge receiver class for the draft, huge free agent receiver class. So there's going to be receivers abundant in terms of being drafted and for free agents. So just the free agent guys, just to list a few. You got Godwin, as I've mentioned before, Allen Robinson, Will Fuller, Kenny Golladay, Juju, Corey Davis, and T.Y. Hilton. It's a big group of receivers there. I think there's about 4 of them that still have a lot left in the tank. I think T.Y., he's probably on the downside. Yeah. Will Fuller can't really stay healthy, and he got suspended, so he's probably not going to be what we thought he would be. And then you have little Hunter Henry and then Jameis Winston, just kind of notable free agents. What are your kind of thoughts of that little free agent pool that's hitting the market this year?
It doesn't get me that excited, honestly. I don't see a QB here that,
right?
Other than Juju being a Steeler, and quite frankly, the Steelers have done a really good job of drafting talent at that position. I like Juju a lot. He's a great community guy in Pittsburgh. He's done a lot off the field that I'd rather not lose.
Right.
At the same time, if he tried to demand a price that was not congruent with him as a player and amongst this team in particular, it wouldn't. If it's not a smart business decision, I don't think many are going to have a problem letting it go.
Right.
But I hope that's not the case. But aside from that, yeah. I mean, look, Godwin could end up being the name of this list if he ends up performing, in some exceptional way next week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be tough though. Sorry, it's going to be tough too. I do think their market's going to be watered down a little bit because I think a lot of people will be looking and say, man, there's 10 receivers in this draft that we feel really good about. So I do think it'll be interesting to see where their prices fall. But I think a lot might be retained on a kind of a little friendlier deal. So that's kind of what I think might happen for a lot of them. But yeah,
this is very simple. This just reminded me how overvalued the wide receiver is often in the hobby.
Yep. We were saying sell Thomas. I mean, they can fall fast too. Just real quick, as you've been just watching the playoffs, what are some guys that you thought really helped themselves? I put my 5 there. I've kind of shared that the last couple weeks with our listeners, and so I thought I'd just give you a chance to go ahead and what guys on that list do you really agree with, or a couple maybe guy left off that really helped themselves in the hobby with their playoff run?
I answered this more generically and more specifically to this list, and then a couple of just more generic comments. The generic comments are very simple. Guys that are still playing.
Right.
Yeah. That's what moves the hobby. That said, I think a guy like Josh Allen, and the question comes up later, so I don't want to steal the thunder too much, but he's a QB, he's young, and he just has that the way of playing that gets both the seasoned fan and the guy who doesn't know much about football excited about it. So I don't think we've seen the ceiling for this guy at all. He helped himself, and he only made me think that he could be one of the 5 guys for the entire league in the hobby moving forward to look toward. Cam Akers, to me, I felt like it was a little too late. He didn't do that much during his rookie season. Yeah, he got a bump because of it, because of his end of the season and playoff performance, but just not enough to
have fully established. Okay.
Right. And then aside from that, I said it as an overarching statement, who's still playing. So Godwin and Kelsey at the end of your list, of course. Anybody who's a Buck or a Chief has done something for themselves in this hobby.
Yeah. Right. For sure. Yeah, I'm all with that for sure.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Godwin could make himself a lot of hobby money or free agent money if he has a 2-touchdown game or something in the Super Bowl this weekend. So, and that's definitely possible. We're gonna get down to the over under bets, but the Super Bowl bets are thinking there's gonna be a lot of points. So we'll have to see how that goes. Yeah. So we got some listener questions. Thanks for everybody again for the questions you guys provided. Remember, we always can send questions to the show at numbers_behind or in the comments of the video here. So I'd love to keep getting those going, keep giving us some things to give you feedback on. So first question was from Drew Satter, does a fantasy football website and writer for Upper Elo. I said it wrong last time for him. He's a good friend of mine. And he said, what are the top landing spots for rookie QBs? Obviously that's really hard to project in terms of where things land. We kind of know Lawrence is going to where he's going to the Jaguars. That's done deal. It's a matter of where things are going to fall after that. I would say maybe just to make this a little simpler, because this question can be a really long question to dive into. I'm doing it
right.
What's that?
This is its own episode.
Yeah, it is. And I'm a draft fan. We can talk about draft stuff forever. But I am really interested on if the Panthers get one of the guys, get a Fields, or if they get, Lance, or they really like Mac Jones from Alabama. I just think the Panthers have the offense and the stuff around him to be really successful. You could tell they're really limited with Bridgewater this year, and their coach has kind of said that publicly. And I think with CMC coming back, I think there's a lot of firepower that offense. Excuse me. So I'm really interested to see what the Panthers do. Any teams that you're interested to see if they can land a quarterback?
Yeah, the Steelers.
Yeah, Steelers. Sorry. Right? And they have a lot of firepower. I mean, they definitely.
I honestly do mean what I said a moment ago. I really think you should do an episode on this because you follow the college game close enough and know the positions, and then it's just a matter of breaking down team needs and who's in and obviously the draft order itself. So
right.
I would be a listener.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely on the off-season agenda. So I definitely will be doing that. Awesome. Question 2 from Bennett Christian who's on the show. I am having Drew and Bennett on the show next week as our kind of end of season get together of just rehashing the whole 2020 NFL season. So his question was, who would be on your top 3 hard sell players at peak come down into the off season? So I'm going to leave that to you, and I'll either say yeah or no. What do you got?
Look, honestly, I did not answer this the way they would want me to, because I know they're looking for 3 names, but I don't think that's the way to answer this. You may not have any one of those 3 names I throw out there.
Right.
Your coffers to go and sell. So I think it's more appropriate, and I kind of stole my own thunder a moment ago by saying sell any and all Chiefs and Bucks.
Yeah.
Because you're obviously getting the answer right now with time leading up to the Super Bowl. I would look to positions that don't typically sell, like O-linemen and defensive guys, because you're going to have not only a lot of attention on the game because of the Super Bowl, but potentially a lot of people that, because of the Super Bowl, don't typically dabble in cards, and they're just looking for their team and or their players. And so you have the potential to be able to sell things that you don't typically have the opportunity to sell. And that's a good thing for a hobbyist that's sitting on a lot of O-linemen and defensive cards that they can't move.
Yeah.
And I would say the same is for that point relative to rookies. You have said this before, and you kind of alluded to it earlier in this conversation, that it's been hard for you in the past to sell things, either because the selling process is daunting, but I think more so for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you kind of build an affinity towards a player and you don't want to let him go. You think they end up being a Hall of Famer, and you can't seem to separate yourself from that. This is the time to look at especially your rookies and especially this year's rookie cards and say to yourself, if it's not a long-term hold, in my opinion, I just have to put it up there.
Right.
Now, a long-term hold can be defined differently. It doesn't have to be a 3 to 5 year thing or a 5 to 10 year thing. A long-term hold could just be, do I think this guy's going to be anything next year above and beyond the value where he is at right now? If not, sell. It's much more than 3 names. I know that hurts a little bit because I'm not giving you 3 solid names.
No, that's good.
This is a better answer for you guys, though, because it's about capitalizing at a moment that's unique this Super Bowl week for both the hobbyists that are trying to grab some things that they don't typically have the opportunity to, and to sell. So this is an important week to move things. That's for sure.
Yeah. I still think I'll just give two quick ones just to kind of give some names. I do agree with your perspective, though. You do have to ask yourself, is there a long-term value here? Like, and we know that's the quarterback position. But I do think in terms of quarterback, you just said it hurts to say, but Jalen Hurts is a sell for me, like a hard sell. The new coaching regimens come in there. They really are not instilling confidence in either, which I think is really weird. They haven't really made either feel like they're really on board with either of them. So that is one person I was able to sell, and that might have been easy because I'm a Cowboys fan, but definitely I think Jalen Hurts his value is still pretty high in terms of his rookie card, so I would be selling him. I think Michael Thomas, for a receiver, he is still giving you good value if you have any rookie cards of him, and I think the bottom's fallen out. I don't think he'll be in this with the Saints next year. I think Breeze is going to be done. I think his question marks are just so many that you need to probably cash out if he's not a personal collection for you. I just don't think he's going to I don't see him being a huge factor receiver one in the league anytime soon. So I kind of held on to my dynasty football shares of him too long. So, but yeah, with that, the next question we had from Matt Reynolds up in Canada, he asked us, is it good to target guys that get a bump from the draft? Like, the Jacksonville receivers, because they're getting Lawrence, or, Tua. Was Tua get a bump if they, get Devonta Smith? What are your thoughts on that? Obviously we can do another show on that, but is that a good strategy?
I like the thinking, and I think it's like any strategy requires that very simple approach of measuring the risk against the reward. If the investment isn't that expensive,
why not?
Go for it 100%. Why not? You could end up having made a decision to invest in somebody on the cheap that blows up because of it. You have your eye on a couple of Jags receivers that don't cost a lot. Now, I will say, remember to ask yourself as well the question you just posed. What's the true long-term benefit here? I think receiver is overvalued. So if you're doing something like this, have an exit plan when you pull the trigger.
It kind of seems to your point. Like, I do see the value in that because, like, Chenault's dirt cheap. He's really cheap. DJ Chark, dirt cheap. Both really productive receivers. They've both shown they can put up big games. And I think with the consistency at quarterback, they could really take off. So I do think there is value there. It's kind of almost like a star stock idea, right? You want to get those cards a star stock because when they have that 2 or 3 TD game, that's a nice 2 or 3x because you're buying Chenault rookies for $2 right now. You know what I mean? So we're not talking big gains here, but they're still gains. And so I do think it's a great idea by Matt. I've been kind of on the Chenault train. I was on Mims for a little bit, but once the Jets lost that number 1 pick, I kind of got off of my boy Mims because I'm not sure what the Jets are going to do at quarterback. And our last question is from Darren Ambrose, also from Canada. Said, do you think Josh Allen's cards will continue to rise next year, or is this the peak? And I think you've kind of answered it, and I'll kind of give my take. I think he's a face. I think he's a NFL face, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So I think his value is going to be within the top realm of the quarterbacks for a while. So I have one nice rookie card with him, and I am probably not going to sell. I was leaning towards selling, but I don't know. I just think that he, like you said, he's a guy that puts it all on the line all the time, and fans from everywhere can appreciate that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you said it. I said it earlier. I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. All right, let's just go over some fun little Super Bowl bets. Shani will get you out of here a little bit longer, but it's always fun to chat, so I don't mind hanging out, having that kind of tabletop chat. So we got KC versus Tampa. Everybody knows the Super Bowl is in Tampa, so a little interesting twist there. Might give Brady a little bit of edge. Might have to make sure the cameras are off for practices, but we won't say anything about that. But we got KC's a 3-point favorite right now. Who do you have straight up in the Super Bowl before we get started? Who do you got?
I'm rooting for Casey.
Yeah.
It's to support Ty first and foremost.
Yep.
Our friend in Casey.
Yep, our friend and warrior.
But I don't want to see Brady get any more hardware, and I don't have a problem saying it.
Yeah. I will say, and I said this last show, I kind of like the youth movement of where the NFL is going in terms of quarterbacks. And I really want Mahomes to win on the pure fact he's the only one as of now that can touch a Brady-type career. And if he loses this week, I think it's done. I think if Brady wins this week, Brady is untouchable. A lot of people think he is already. But if Mahomes gets his second Super Bowl at the age of 25, I think that he does have a chance to get 6 rings. And so for me, it's more that interesting quarterback of all time battle I want to see kept alive. So I am going for KC as well, even though my really good friend Rye is a big Tampa Bay fan, but I will, hopefully he doesn't hear this.
Unfair that they have a home field advantage. That shouldn't happen.
Right. I know.
Not going there.
It's crazy. All right. So Super Bowl bets. You and I are just we can be on the same side or differ. Just
Sure.
quick little fun over-unders just to get out of here. Total touchdowns of the game, over under 6.5. That's the Vegas line for 6.5 touchdowns. What do you think? It's going to be fireworks or going under?
I'm going under.
Under. I think I'm going to go over. I think it will be a 21-28. I think I might get right in that 7 touchdown line. So
I'm jotting this down. I'm keeping this.
All right, let's do that. Let's keep score. I'm probably going to get hurt by field goals, I bet.
I'm going under, you're going over.
All right. Brady, over under 39 passing attempts.
I'm going over.
Oh, I'm actually going under on that. So we're doing good differing. I'm going under there. I think he won't throw over 39. That's a lot. Mahomes, over under 325.
Under.
I'm going over. We're doing good. We're doing good. Different. I like this. A good little match.
Playing, folks.
Yeah. All right. Total rushing yards combined, 189.5.
This is a tough one.
Yeah.
I looked at what the potential bottom line is. They don't have either Fournette or Hilaire going for much, but we know KC has a lot of guys they'll hand the ball off to, including Holmes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I had to go over on this one.
Okay, I'm actually leaning towards under. I think it's just going to be all throwing. I think it's going to be a lot of throws. I do think that Tampa Bay will try to slow the game down a little bit. That's why I don't have Brady going for 39 attempts. I can see him making 35, which is still a lot. But I'll take the under there. All right, good. Well, then I'll just do the opposite of the last one. Regardless, we're 4 for 4 and differing. That's impressive. That's how you know these are good spreads.
Right. Well, the Vegas has the number. I mean, they do a lot of research. They don't play games with these things. They're on the number with this. So
that's right. Travis Kelce, over under 98 yards receiving.
The toughest one for me. I have to go over.
Yeah. I was going to go over as well, and I will take the under though, just to differ, just to keep that even. Just because the Tampa Bay has really athletic linebackers, so that is a factor with Levante David and Devin White. They definitely, I won't say they can run with Kelce, but I do think they have some guys in back there that can attempt to cover him a little bit better. So I'll take the under, even though I kind of think Kelce is like a sneaky MVP. He could have like a 2-touchdown, 150-yard game and be MVP. I think that definitely could happen for him. He's been so hot during the playoffs. So, but yeah, I'll let you have that one. Being my guest, being the nice guy that I am. But yeah, thanks for being on, buddy. Again, through Bench Clear Media, make sure you guys subscribe and leave any comments or anything for me and Shani. You got any parting words, my friend?
Thanks for having me, Tyson. I always have a good time talking to you. I'll do it anytime.
That's right, man. Hopefully in the flesh sometime soon.
Post Super Bowl. I know you got a guest for next week for the Super Bowl, but we'll have to talk about these bets.
Definitely, we will.
We have a week. We should think about putting something on the line, but let's not hustle to it. Let's give it.
Yeah, all right. We can talk about that offline. I mean, it's kind of been tough for my bets. I think Ty owes me a bag of coffee. I'm still waiting on, so we'll see.
One that I've never opened. You can have it.
All right. Perfect. All right. Take care. Have a good week, buddy.
Thanks, man.